Episode 44 of the Tool Bags Up Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Sebastian Caballero. Gonna talk some college football right now. Big news came out this week. However, I am going to take a back seat for today's segment of college football, and Hector is going to take over. It'll be me, Hector, and Sheehan on for this segment. What's up, boys?
What's going on?
What's up, man? All right, so, obviously, if you've been, unless you're living under a rock or don't follow college sports whatsoever, that's all these, these sports channels are talking about right now. College football, are they going to play a fall season or not? Some smaller conferences already decided, hey, no fall season. And now, earlier this week, Big Ten and Pac-12 have decided to cancel their fall seasons. They're going to try again in the spring. My question to you guys is, how do you think this is going to affect these kids when they have a quick turnaround from their spring football season to the normal 2021 fall football season?
I literally see no way of there being a spring season and then a fall season. Like, what are you asking these kids to do? This whole thing, what it's created, you can no longer say that athletes don't deserve to get paid. At least football players don't deserve to get paid, because the only reason why this is such a big story is because this isn't a hobby. This is a business. College football is a business. And for you to require kids to not only play a spring season in January, forget about the draft. Just forget about the draft. To play a spring season in January, have the summer off, and then go ahead and play another full season in the fall? No way, man. No way. Get the fuck out of here. Fuck you. These kids, you got to compensate them at some point. They got to have some power. They have to have a voice, okay? It's completely wrong to ask a kid to play that much football. And it's not even the college athletes, even professional athletes. You cannot ask these guys to play a physical game of football without having that big of a break. The off season is meant for you to get better, to get stronger, to recuperate from this long season, and you're gonna take that away from them. Why? The only explanation is money, and that's not cool.
You're looking, if you're a college kid and you're some stud prospect, you're looking at around 30 games in a calendar year. That's tough. That's brutal, especially if you're a skill position player, if you're a wide receiver. That is a lot of hits that these kids are being asked to absorb in the name of, amateur athletics. If ever there was a time to unionize, it'd be right now, because this is a topic that is absolutely worthy of unionizing over. And I think it'd go over exactly the way they want it to go over, because this is, as Sebastian put, fucking bullshit that they're being asked to, do something like this. I understand why they're being asked to do it, because it's in the name of safety. I think in the end, college football is actually, at least for the most part, interested in these kids' safety, these kids' safety, and that's why they're moving. Or at least the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are moving their seasons to the spring. But you're going to see a bunch of players opt out. There's no way, if you're a stud prospect, are you really going to put everything on the line for a spring season and then be more likely to be injured come draft time? You're going to be playing top-notch Division I football in April in 100-degree heat if you're, in a southern state. That's tough, man. So I don't know what's going to happen. If I were to guess, I'd say that a lot of guys are going to opt out, and the spring season, if it does happen, is going to be a horror show. But if they want to unionize, now's the time.
Yeah, I don't understand it whatsoever. It's too many games in such a short amount of time for such a gladiator type sport like football. That's why they have the longest off season in college sports, because they need it. They need their bodies to recover. It's such a physical game, and it does so much damage physically and mentally. And honestly, just thinking football wise, when you look at the Pac-10 and the Pac-12, what are the big name athletes? Justin Fields, cornerback Sean Wade, the offensive tackle out of Oregon, Penny Sewell. Those three guys won't play in the spring. They're going to go to the NFL draft. Those are top 10 potential draft picks. So the product, even if they do play a spring season, because there's no guarantee that they even go through with it. I mean, it's not gonna be the same. It's not gonna be the same type of product. It's gonna be, it's gonna be watered down, and also, like Sheen said, I mean, our kids really gonna go 110% for a season that really doesn't matter. So we're gonna segue. We're gonna we talked about two Power Five conferences that are no longer playing football this fall. However, there are three Power Five that will. You got the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. They're still planning to play a fall season. In fact, the Big 12 actually released their schedule. They pushed back their start date to September 24th. I think that's what lines up with the SEC. I expect the ACC to do the same, just to give these kids more time to prepare for the season. And since you've seen some conferences, like I said, the Big Ten and Pac-12, they're out. College coaches might be looking to leave that conference just for a season. Nebraska has talked about it. Michigan's still practicing. Jim Harbaugh might be, he hasn't said it publicly, but he might be, looking around to play. If there was teams allowed to leave the Big Ten and Pac-12 just for the season to, play a fall football season, what teams do you think would jump?
I think you mentioned two right there, Michigan and Nebraska. First of all, I think personally, Nebraska needs to go back to the Big 12. I think that's when they were completely dominant, and ever since they moved to the Big 10, they've disappeared as a Power 5 team. They were a perennial powerhouse for so many years, and they just fallen off. Obviously, with Scott Frost being there, things could change. So I definitely see them leaving there. Jim Harbaugh has been very vocal about it from the beginning, for months now, about playing in the fall, and obviously the big one, Ohio State. Ohio State is a powerhouse in college football. I mean, you have somebody like Justin Fields there that's going to be a top 10 draft pick come next spring. You need to play. You need to find somewhere to play. I would love to see Nebraska in the Big 12. I would love to see Michigan actually in the SEC. I don't know how that's going to work, but I would love to see that. And I would like to see Ohio State in the ACC. I'm going to tell you why I chose the SEC for Michigan and why I chose the ACC for Ohio State. So we all remember the back and forth with Jim Harbaugh doing recruiting in Florida and trying to take away some of those kids. I think it'll be great. Obviously, there's been this rivalry, kind of a small rivalry with Florida the last couple of years with the bowl games also. Seeing him playing against Nick Saban, that would be awesome for ratings, okay? And then I would like Ohio State to be in the ACC just for the simple fact. Number one, I want somebody to compete with Clemson. But I also want to see a third round of Ohio State and Clemson. I think they owe us a third round of that game, especially after the last playoff game this past year. I think that would be great. And again, Nebraska back in the Big 12, that's where they really rose in the national stage. I think they should just definitely go back. As far as some other teams, I'm not sure what Michigan State's plans are, or maybe like a Penn State. That's another powerhouse. I could definitely see a Penn State definitely fits in the ACC. But as far as some of the other Big Ten schools, some Purdue, IU, I'm not really sure how they're gonna play that out. But I would love to see specifically those three schools, and Nebraska for tradition, Michigan and Ohio State, just for the ratings.
Yeah, I think if any team from if teams from the Big Ten and then Pac-12 are going to move and play in the SEC, Big 12, or ACC for a season, I think it's going to come down to basically how good they are, because the best teams are the teams with the best players, and the best players have the most to gain by playing in the fall as opposed to the spring. So, like you said, the big one obviously is Ohio State. They're the ones, the perennial playoff team. Michigan, I think they would get shellacked if they play in the SEC, but I would like to see it. It's kind of a distance. I think their northernmost opponent would be Missouri. They'd have to do a little bit of traveling, but if it happens, I wish Jim Harbaugh nothing but the best. The Pac-12 doesn't really have the amount of teams, contending teams that the Big Ten has. Doesn't have like the Penn States, the Ohio States, but there's some respectable squads there. SC has some players. Oregon has some players. Both Washington and Washington State have some players. So it would probably be to their benefit to maybe join the Big 12 for a season. I could see that happening. But like I said, I really think it's going to come down to if it is of a like how big of a benefit it is for a team to play in the fall as opposed to the spring. The IUs, I think they just want to play. And I think safety is going to be their number one concern, as it should be for most teams. But like I said, the teams that have the most to gain from playing in the fall are the better teams.
And I just want to chime in because I did forget to mention. I didn't forget to mention the Pac-12, but I didn't mention the Pac-12, and it was for a reason. The Pac-12 is run so differently that there's not really a team other than Oregon that really stands out. But then you got to think about travel at that point. All of them are way out in the West Coast, and like I think you mentioned Missouri and Nebraska. Like you're talking about, like these are their closest games, and then there's games in Texas. I don't see that happening where they join other conferences. Like I said, they do things very differently. So this is why I only mentioned Big Ten schools. Hector, go ahead.
Well, I mean, hey, you have to. Utah had a good season last year. Utah, towards the end, I think by the conference championship, they were actually a top 10 team nationally. Granted, that's not an every year thing. Arizona State did get a couple guys because, actually they have a really good quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Herm Edwards, when they made that hire, I was a little surprised. But man, it looks like a good hire. It's been paying dividends. So yeah, I could see some teams from the Big Ten and Pac-12, just leave for 1 year. But I was thinking, like, let's say 5 from the Pac-12 and 5 from the Big Ten leave. How about you just make that a whole conference for 1 year? You can make that like a new conference for 1 year. That way, scheduling's a little bit easier to work with because most of these programs, like the SEC, already Big 12 already released their schedule. ACC has their schedule in mind. So same through the SEC. It'd be a lot of extra work, but if a lot of programs from the Big Ten and Pac-12 decide to just dip for 1 year, I'd say what, give them their own conference, but it's got to be at least 8 teams. So that way it can be somewhat respectable. I think 10 or 12 would be ideal. Anything more than that would be just gravy. So a lot of what we've been talking about, especially Sheehan, has been safety, player safety. Now, obviously, the coronavirus is still out there. It's a very dangerous, it's a very serious thing, as we all know. I mean, we're all still locked up in our houses, and it's been 5 to 6 months. So you have to take that in consideration. It is a serious, medical threat. But when you look at a lot of these campuses, these schools are taking great care of their student athletes. These guys have top of the line medical care. They're being tested every day. They're getting hand sanitized every day. As much. I mean, not as much as minimal contact as possible. And what's this thing called? Oh, and also, I know at Florida, after they work out, I cover Florida, so that's how I know. I know after Florida, when they finish a rep, they have people right there just cleaning it up if somebody else is about to jump in. So that way, you try to keep the germs as far away as possible. I know Miami's been doing that. They had a little bit of an outbreak in the beginning, but that was before they started doing workouts. Thankfully, it's been calmed down. Everyone's healthy. There has been positive tests since. So even though these guys are making the sacrifices, they're doing everything they can to keep these kids healthy, do you still think it's actually safer for these kids to be out in the streets with their families, or you think playing in a controlled environment in a mini bubble, what do you think is safer?
I'm gonna chime in here, and I'm gonna bring out Coach C here. I was actually talking about that with one of my assistant coaches. I don't know how we're gonna deal with the whole COVID situation, as far as players. And the reason why I bring that up is because of the risk factor. Like people are kind of making it seem like if you play sports, your chances of getting corona are going to increase. That your chances of being infected with COVID are going to increase, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Like the fact that these universities are going to extreme measures to ensure the safety of the players already lets you know that they're probably safer there. But I think that what people are confusing is a safe environment or a safer environment to a complete corona-free environment. That's not going to happen unless you're in some type of bubble like the NBA. Okay, if you really look at the MLB's numbers, they've had a couple of outbreaks, but their numbers are pretty low with positive tests. So I I think that for the players' sake, it's better for them to be around the school, around their facilities that are 100% being cleaned, or trying to keep it as safe as possible, rather than sending them home where they come from various backgrounds. We saw some of the players. There was one kid from Mississippi State that tweeted like, "I don't want to go back home. Like, it's not safe here. People are getting killed every day. Like, these college campuses is like a safe zone for these kids." And that word safe, again, is relative, because even though to somebody, there it puts them at risk, for a lot of these kids, this is like the safest place that they know. So I would I would keep the kids on campus. And like, I feel like it would be an injustice to send these kids home when this is their escape. This is their safe house, basically.
It's a tricky question because I do think that if you're an athlete on a college campus, that you are at a greater risk to contract COVID as opposed to if you were home. Just because of the numbers game, you're coming into contact with more people, you're touching more things, you're just out and about more. But the protocol in those environments, the safety protocols are better than if you were at home. So it's a greater risk, but you have a better system to defend against it, as opposed to a lower risk, but you can do whatever you want. So you're more likely to sway and do something that you're not supposed to. It just comes down to whether or not they follow the protocol. That's been issues in other sports leagues. Guys have, freelanced, so to speak, gone out and done their own thing, and they end up paying for it. They end up contracting the virus. They have to quarantine. They have to wait for a positive test. If a college is able to get their players and just their student athletes to truly buy in and follow what it is they're supposed to be doing, that becomes the safer environment. The issue will be getting them to actually do what they're supposed to do, which isn't always easy when you have, between 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-olds on a college campus. So it's greater risk at a college, better protocol versus lower risk and no protocol.
I mean, yeah, it should be, these kids should be in a mini bubble. And for the most part, I know some of these college campuses I know at Florida, these kids are taking solely online classes. So they're not even going to the general public. The same thing is going to be happening in Clemson. Most of these colleges, most of them probably tell them what their schedule is. So they're just going to be telling them, hey, every single one of your classes is going to be literally virtual, just for safety precautions. And by the way, Sebastian, the player that you mentioned earlier, that's Kylan Hill. Kylan Hill is their star running back. He's a guy that really needs the season. This is a draft year for him. So that's part of the reason why he put that tweet out. There's a former Miami running back. He's now a Florida, Lorenzo Lingard. He's advocating for the season to happen. He's saying, dude, I don't care. Lock me up. I don't want to go back home. There's kids, wide receiver Jacob Copeland. He's from Pensacola, a rough part of Pensacola. He does not want to go back home. These kids are scared to go back home because of the type of environments that they live in. So this is something that I think the SEC is doing the right thing, at least giving it a try. They're waiting till late September. So, they're giving themselves a lot of time before they, end up pulling the plug. But yeah, I think these kids are safer in their environments. And another thing I would do, just to make sure these kids are even safer, is I would, make them sign a waiver saying, hey, look, you know what you're going through. You know what you're entering. You know the risk. If you decide to opt out, no problem. No harm, no foul. Guess what? You get a medical registry, so you keep a year and of eligibility, and nothing. We just move on. No one's going to blame you for it. I mean, look, there's NFL guys that are opting out. So if they're opting out, you have the right to too. And in that, waiver, if they break protocol, then they have harsh punishments, like how they should for Major League Baseball. Because I mean, we've seen what Major League Baseball has happened. Granted, it's been taken care of. We're going to move on to our next topic, and it is going to be: is it time for these kids to get paid? I think this has been a question for like the past decade. and I think they deserve to get paid for this, just for this year at least. But is it time for them to get some sort of compensation from here on out? Sebastian, what do you think?
I've flip flopped on this particular topic for a while. I believe that the NCAA, and as we mentioned in former episodes, they did right by letting them profit off of their name, their likeness, and their image. I think that's a no-brainer. If there's Instagram models at your on your campus that are making money off of their image, then you should be able to allow these athletes to benefit from that. That's number one. As far as them getting paid, this one is tricky because although yes, ideally yes, they should get paid. Football is really the only sport that generates a decent amount of money in order for them to play athletes. So there's one of two things that need to happen. Obviously, some basketball schools like Duke and UNC, they obviously generate a lot of money every year, but it's not the majority, not like football. There's one or two things that needs to happen, and one of my favorite sports analysts, Colin Coward, had mentioned this. They need to make college football separate from the rest of college athletics. Okay, this is option one, and make it what it is, unionize, because it generates so much money. The players need a voice in this. Okay, it's literally free labor. It's been free labor for years now. And the fact that you are putting these kids at risk, again, this is up to them. Some of the players want to play. If you want to opt out, you can. But the fact that they're even considering going through with this, if COVID is really as bad as it is, and you're forcing kids, your students to stay home, and it's not safe to go to class, but you're still trying to push a football season, then you can no longer say that this is just a hobby, that this is just something to do, that this is just them representing the school. No, this is a business. This is generating money for you. Now, the other option, if that's not what universities want to do, and I don't think they'll ever, if they do it, it won't be anytime soon. The other option, and this was actually given out by Willie Taggart, of all people, believe it or not, he came up with something that said, pay the athletes, but they don't have access to that money unless they graduate. What do I like about that plan? Number one, you're forcing kids to graduate. You're motivating them to graduate. They are getting paid. They're not getting that money immediately, but you're really motivating these guys to graduate, which is important. Number one. Number two, even if you opt out early and you decide to go into the NFL, you're really making millions of dollars. Is that money now of importance to you to graduate? Not really, but at least it's going to help out the universities. It's going to help out a lot of these kids get through school. It's an option. For me, I feel that the solution is the first part of it. Separate college football from the rest of athletics. But if we were to pay the athletes, I really, really like this other option. I just feel like the university really does rely on football to cover some other expenses. It really does bring in a lot of money. And if you do pay athletes, it could have some other effects throughout the campus and throughout the athletic program and things like that. And other sports might be affected. Baseball for one. Personally for me. So I'm for it, but we got to find the right way to do it.
Yeah, football is tricky, and I agree with you that it's its own animal. You can't really compare it to definitely not baseball. And basketball, you can only really compare it to a couple schools. The thing that people that oppose paying college athletes never seem to consider is what kind of position the college athletes, the average college athlete is in that doesn't get to play professional sports. Because if you've dedicated 4 years of your life to playing college athletics, you might have a degree, correct, but there's a good chance that degree was chosen for you by your college coaching staff. So it might not even be a degree that's worth much to you, might not even a degree that you were interested in. Two, you haven't had much time to develop that degree, meaning in a professional setting. So most people, when you're getting a degree, you have internships, you're making connections. That's all stuff that college athletes don't have time to do. they're there to play sports and they're there to get an education. But in terms of the extracurricular things that help set them up for the time that they graduate and move into the job, ideally a good job in their field, they don't get to do any of that. So unless you are the 1% or the less than 1% of college athletes that get to play professionally, you are not in a good position after you graduate because of the amount of time that you have to dedicate to playing your sport. It's not just you play fall football season. You're playing in the spring. It's a whole year thing if you're a college athlete. So the people that oppose paying college athletes, I think, really need to consider the bad position that a lot of college athletes are in. So I think that they should be paid. Like Sebastian said, the issue is going to be what is the most effective way to do that? Because scholarships, I think it's a valid argument that scholarships, have monetary value because it's money that you're saving. They're paying for you to go there. So would scholarships decrease now that you're getting paid, actually in your pocket? That's another issue that needs to be tackled. I'm not sure how it should get done. Colin Cowherd does bring up a good option. I think if I had to choose one option that's been presented, Colin Cowherd would probably be my pick. In that basketball, baseball, every sport that isn't football is separate, and football essentially becomes minor league. College football essentially becomes minor league NFL, which is already what it is. So Colin Cowherd, I think, presents a good option, but it certainly is tricky.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I've been advocating for these kids to get some sort of compensation. What they go through on a daily basis is not easy whatsoever. They deserve some sort of compensation, and you know what? Especially during a year like this, they really deserve it. Especially if they opt in. And I kind of like what Willie Taggart, said. Wait to the end. I say good, but also maybe not too much. You know, leave a little bit for during now because those kids are going to need money for just getting food and stuff. Maybe their families can't afford it. All right, we have a few minutes left. Let's talk quickly. One more question. Do you guys think that the Pac-12 and Big Ten canceling their fall football seasons have more to do with the coronavirus or the players unionizing? Sebastian.
The players unionizing, man. It's like I said, it's free labor. They don't want to give the players power. They don't want to give them a voice, and it's why, that's why I said they need somebody to represent them, man. It's something that the universities listen. Nobody in power ever wants to give up power, and especially if you're just generating money and the product, you're not really investing anything in the product that's getting you that money. Like, why would you ever want to change that? And notice it's the Pac-12 was the first conference that came out, and then, the players wanted to unionize, and they were making all these demands and things like that. What a coincidence that they were the main conference that wanted to opt out. So yeah, man, I feel like it was more that you can argue it any which way, but the fact is this, okay? Every conference has their own medical board, their own medical advisors, and they're all bringing up the same points. What's been the difference? That what's it called? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. What's been the difference is that how is it safe for three conferences to say, okay, it's safe, but then with the same information, two other conferences are saying, no, it's not safe for us to go out there. Like, there's more to it there, and I feel it's more of the giving up some power to the players instead of actually being corona related.
It's kind of both, because in my opinion, because yes, I think the players unionizing is what scares the higher ups in these Power 5 college football conferences the most. But the reason they're unionizing, I think, is greatly motivated by the coronavirus, because they're really being asked to put a lot on the line this year, and that kind of pill is much harder to swallow when you don't have a union. So I do think, maybe I'm an idealist, a glass half full guy, but I do think that these guys genuinely care about the safety of their players. But a union is certainly scary for these people. They have been profiting off of free labor for, So it's college football. College since the 1800s, college football has been benefiting from this kind of cheap labor, producing billions of dollars for the universities, the stuff that funds the stadiums, the stuff that funds everything that all the university's operations are greatly funded by sports, and they've been benefiting off of this for years. So they are absolutely frightened of the Pac-12 unionizing. And the Pac-12 is not a Joe Schmo conference; it's a Power Five, like we said. So that could easily affect other conferences, especially once they see if it happens to go well for the Pac-12, just like it went well for players getting paid, for players benefiting off of their likeness. Then a bunch of other one state does it, then another state does it, then another state does it. You're going to have to keep up. So a union is absolutely scary. I think that's what's scaring these the higher ups in the Power Five conferences, although safety is on their minds as well.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with the players unionizing than the coronavirus. Now, the coronavirus is obviously, there's serious reasons why they're canceling, but I mean, nothing's really changed when it comes to coronavirus. And at least in some of the hot spots like Florida, California, and Arizona, for the most part, things are improving. Case numbers are going down, case positive percentages are going down. So things might actually be looking better. And so why are we canceling now? I think this has more to do with the players unionizing because they could probably afford, even though it's lots and lots of money, they can probably afford just missing out on 1 year rather than changing the entire format of college football. That the players unionizing is threatening to the way the NCAA has been run for for over a century. So that's why I think these guys are opting out. And usually, you're looking at the ACC, SEC, and Big 12. Those bring in a lot of money. Those programs can afford to pay their athletes some sort of money. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, but it has to be something that can help these kids just live a normal college life that they really can. They have too much time in the practice field watching film in meetings that they can't get a job. Like no one can bag groceries at Publix because you wake up at 5 a.m. and then you probably don't leave there till like 8 or 9. Well, that's all the questions we have today for the college football segment. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day, and let's continue to wear our masks so we don't have to worry about college football.
Can we give a huge shout out to Hector because he planned out this entire show? Excellent job. No, this guy went all out. No, guys. Serious note though. That was a great topic there. What I hope, and we'll end it here. What I hope is just that the other conferences don't come now, later this week on Friday and be like, oh well, we're canceling too. Hopefully, we do have some college football in the fall. So,
Amen.
yes. Let's switch over to baseball, fellas. I'll see you in a little bit. Moving on to baseball here. Got it's gotten better, right? We had a little bit of a shit show last week with all the positive testing, all the outbreaks with the Marlins and the Cardinals, but it seems to be getting a little bit better. Guys, let's talk about it. So we predicted that there was going to be a couple of changes, some differences here happening this season, some teams that shouldn't be winning that are going to probably be winning, and some teams that are pretty well-respected teams that are going to be struggling. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Things are looking up, though. Let's talk about that first. What is your guys' reaction now? A couple of weeks removed from all the outbreaks that had happened a couple weeks ago.
All things considered, I think it's gone okay recently. A part of me thought that once the Marlins had all their positive tests and they infected some of the Phillies and then with the Cardinals, that things were just going to spiral out of control and we would have made it to 20 games and then, see you later, 2020 MLB season. But things seem to be going okay. Hopefully they keep it up. Some teams, the Cardinals, doesn't seem like they've figured it out entirely. And then you got idiots like Mike Clevenger and Zach Plesac just deciding to go out. But for the most part, seems like guys are being pretty safe. And so far, so good. The Marlins should be coming back relatively soon, probably in about a week or so. And I think all things considered, the second half of the season so far, from what we've had, the second half has been pretty good.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. At first, like Shane said, when the Marlins really did get all those cases, I thought it really was going to be like the end of the season. I was like, all right, this is just a matter of time. You can't really contain it. It's just going to get worse. But maybe, Manfred was right, as in, it was the players' faults. Maybe the players were being pretty irresponsible. And I think the Marlins having all of those cases and that almost really shutting it down like that, I thought maybe kind of woke it up for everyone, and everyone kind of got a little stricter with it and didn't want to really ruin their season. So it is pretty cool to see that, man. It's good to see that it looks like it's going in the right direction. And it looks like we're going to finish the season.
Yeah, once the Marlins got hit with the coronavirus hard, I was really concerned that we weren't going to be able to finish the season. Then all of a sudden, the Cardinals got hit hard, and it was just like, Jesus, back to back, and both teams got hit pretty hard. Luckily, when the Cardinals got hit hard, the Marlins were starting to come back. So their players had already stopped testing positive, and they were on their way to playing. So that was the good point. So, one team was testing positive, and then when they stopped testing positive, the other team did. So they were still able to play with just one less team. The good news is also that the Cardinals, for the past, I think, 2 or 3 tests, they have continued to test negative. So I think they're going to start resuming play maybe later on this week on Friday. So we can finally have all 30 MLB teams playing at one time. And you know what? The product on the field hasn't been too bad. There have been some of the players. There are some players, some teams that are held with high regard, like the Houston Astros. They're struggling. I'm pretty sure most of baseball is happy about that. Sorry, Justin. But at the end of the day, it's and it's also pretty fun seeing some small teams, do work, like the Marlins right now. They've surprised a lot of teams. They're a real life, version of the movie The Replacements. They're the baseball version of that. And the Orioles, with a bunch of guys that no one really knows, has a winning record. So it's actually kind of fun watching, the quote unquote bottom feeders actually, start playing competitive baseball.
Just a quick comment on the Cardinals and the Marlins thing. Is it just a coincidence that the two teams that play that share the same spring training facility both tested positive? I don't know. Maybe it came from there, but let's not dig into that. We're gonna try to remain positive for this segment here. Let's talk about the Marlins, though. Let's talk about the fish, okay? I know the wheels kind of fell off here, and we came back to reality the last couple of days, but the Marlins, the Orioles, even though these teams were really bottom feeders, the A's and the Cubs, I feel like they've come out super hot and have really just surprised some people. What are your thoughts on these teams in specific, and what team, if it's not one of these teams, what team has surprised you the most so far?
Well, it has to be the Marlins. And thank God we're doing this segment today, because if we would have waited a week, the Marlins might already be out of it. They're fading pretty quickly. Although I will say that the umpires have had played a big factor in the last couple of losses. But the Marlins have been the biggest surprise. They've had this ragtag group of people, scrapping people, picking people off the scrap heap. Richard Blair, who's actually had a pretty respectable career, but no one knows who that guy is. We have an Olympic speed skater getting a lot of time in the infield in Eddie Alvarez. It's really, really impressive, and there's not a lot of good stories in major leagues right now, but the Marlins are certainly one of them. Jesus Aguilar looks like the Jesus Aguilar of 2018. Guys are really, really, really proving a lot of people wrong. And the pitching staff's been incredible, especially the bullpen, which I can't even remember the last time I could say that the Marlins had a good bullpen. I don't think since 2003, maybe. The Marlins have been a great story, and I'm really surprised that the Houston Astros have struggled so far. I thought they'd get a pass this year because there's no crowd. but teams are still going after him. And Altuve's struggling, Bregman's struggling, Springer's struggling. Correa's doing well, but a lot of their stars are really sucking it up, and people are happy about that. So this was going to be a tough season to predict. I think everybody understood that from the get-go. And so far, it's lived up to that billing. It's tough to understand, tough to predict, tough to know what's going to happen.
See, and you didn't like the 08-09 Marlins bullpen with Raniel Pinto and Kevin Gregg? Oh, come on, man.
You know, I wasn't.
With the 6 ERA bullpen?
No, I really wasn't a fan of Kevin Gregg, Heart Attack Greg, with his stupid glasses, throwing 94 right down the pipe, acting like it was 104.
Go ahead, man. Somebody else go.
But listen, not because we're Miami people, but like you'd be lying if you said like the Marlins aren't the biggest surprise, because we know that they have young talent like arms, but that lineup, no one on that lineup would start anywhere else but on the Marlins or the Orioles. Like they won't start anywhere. There's no big league starters there, and it really isn't. Aguilar was a flash in a pan 2 years ago. He was a terrible player after that, and it's like he's hot. Like he could hit. He's shown that he can hit at least, but he's not. No one wanted him, and no one else on that roster is really wanted except outside of their prospects. So that is the biggest surprise. But I mean, and we're talking about the Astros and their struggles. Yeah, I don't want to say it's the sign stealing because it's not. I'm saying like those are great hitters. Those are great hitters, and not because I have seen them in the cages and personally seen them hit and hear how they hit and what they think, but those are great hitters. So it really is kind of like crazy. I don't know if it's in their head, but like it's very surprising. And like that top of the lineup is doing like really bad because they have a lot of talent. They're super deep. Some of the guys there are hitting well, but like Springer hitting when he's hitting is terrible. Altuve, an MVP type player, an MVP, Bregman, an MVP type player, and Springer's a World Series MVP. So it's like to see those guys struggling like really bad like this is kind of like shocking. And another team that's surprising, sorry about to say this, the Tigers. The Tigers, a team that's like another terrible team, really talent depleted, led by Miguel Cabrera, who's, obviously on the decline. Kind of reminds me of like where Pujols is at in his career. He could hit, but he's not, Pujols. And he could hit, but he's not Cabrera, but they're winning, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, we're talking about the Marlins right now. They're winning 11-4 against the Blue Jays in the top of the fifth. I mean, they just gave their top prospect, Nate Pearson, some trouble. And look, that's another – the Marlins are the surprise team, and it has a lot of that has to do with just the fact that they lost so many guys and so many top guys, especially out of that bullpen early in the season. And then they pick up a bunch of guys that I had to Google who the hell they even are. And they're doing work. I mean, they are right now, so far, so good. I mean, they swept the Orioles, and when people said, oh, it's just the Orioles – the Orioles are playing above 500 baseball right now. If the season ended, they just squeak into the postseason. So, I mean, you got to tip your cap to these guys. They're making the best out of a difficult situation, even though there are some guys, some of the guys are coming back. There are some guys that are already starting to test negative. There's guys that have already, filed for I'm blanking now on it. But, yeah, they're trying to get back on the field. But it's going to take a little bit of time for them. They're going to have to spend some time in Jupiter just to, get back to game speed, get back to game shape before they can step on the field. And, yeah, the Astros have been pretty putrid. It's a lot easier knowing what's coming than guessing, I guess. But it's going to be tough. Boston, I mean, we all saw them being, pretty bad this year. Baltimore's playing well. And, even though the Blue Jays are playing under 500 baseball, they're still a good team. They've got good young talent. Speaking of young talent, the Padres. That's a team that's on the rise, and it's being led by Fernando Tatis Jr.
I just want to point out that Hector works for the Marlins, and he just said he had to Google some guys that are on the roster that are currently playing for the Marlins. That's how bad it is. And
not Monte. No. I had to Google who James Hoyt was. Nick Vincent's been there before. I remember him. And then, like, Ryan LaVarnway, that was just so, like, what? I don't know who – I've never heard of LaVarnway.
Yeah, man, it's been crazy. But if this – so far, this season has shown anything is it's proven that old saying, baseball's 90% mental, or it's a mental game. Like, it's proven it right. The teams that are exceeding expectations, we mentioned the Tigers, the Marlins, the Orioles, the Rockies, even though they have some veterans, these are teams that are excelling. Why? Because they're playing with nothing to lose, really. Like, I feel like, I truly feel that that's why these guys are playing so good. They're going out there trying to make a name for themselves, when other guys are just like, well, I got my millions. Like, I'm just really not trying to get Corona. You can't tell me that that's not on their mind. Some of these veteran guys, you can't tell me it's not on their mind. If I'm somebody that's trying to make a name for themselves, I mean, some of these guys, one of the guys that started for the Marlins a couple of days ago hadn't pitched higher than A-ball, like, and he pitched in the major leagues. So you can't tell me that these young guys that are trying to make a name for themselves aren't going to outplay some of these other guys that already kind of have it made. And more to it, talking about the mental aspect of it, we brought up the Astros. You can't tell me that it's not on their mind. It's like like I saw Altuve have probably the worst swing he's ever had in his life, and it's because he was overthinking at the play. Like, he's such a good hitter that shouldn't happen. And you can 100% tell, like, the Astros hitters are struggling with it, making the adjustments. It won't last very long. They're gonna bounce back because, like Justin said, these guys are super, super talented. They are great hitters. But right now, their struggles offensively are all mental, for sure. So, other than the Astros, let's talk about some other teams that we thought were going to be good. The Nationals. I mean, I didn't think the Nationals were going to be good, but the Nationals. The Dodgers are even kind of, they're 11-7. We thought they were just going to run away with that division. Talk to me about the teams other than the Astros that are struggling, that are kind of surprising you.
You just said it, the Dodgers. Cody Bellinger, woof. I don't know. And it sucks because he, in our top 10 MLB players, he came in second on my list. So, but he came into this season for some reason wanting to tinker a swing that just won an MVP for him, and I don't know why he would do that. Clearly, it hasn't been working. He says he's gone back to his old swing, but it's still not exactly where he wants to be. So the Dodgers, Mookie Betts has been, Mookie Betts for the most part. He's not 100% there yet, but he will be. But the Dodgers staff, I'm happy to see Clayton Kershaw doing well. That's been a positive. I think baseball's better when he is excelling. But the Dodgers are clearly one of the teams that people thought would just be running away with things and haven't so far. The Nationals, I was one of the ones that thought they were going to be okay. But so far, definitely not been the case. Max Scherzer has been okay, but he seems to be really going all out the way he always has, and he's 36 now and might have to dial it back a little bit. He had a hamstring issue that hasn't helped. Juan Soto got COVID. That didn't help either. I do expect both of these teams to bounce back, but like we said, it's MLB is so unpredictable nowadays. There's really it's unprecedented what we're going through, so it's really tough to make predictions. So a lot of us are going to look really foolish by the end of the season.
But yeah, I mean, not because maybe it is because the Marlins are doing really good, but the teams that really are surprising me that are doing bad are the NL East teams. The Nationals, I'm gonna give them a pass. I mean, they're losing an MVP player in Anthony Rendon, which because of that loss, I had Juan Soto either winning the MVP or finishing in the top MVP. He just got back, so you're gonna expect them to struggle. It's like losing Rendon and Soto, so that is huge. But the pitching staff isn't picking up the slack. But now Soto is back, so you could just imagine that things are gonna start getting better now. And the Phillies are super talented team, top to bottom, in and out, offense, and the whole lineup. And seeing them struggle is also crazy too. So you got two extremely talented teams. The Mets as well. The Mets on paper, that is a great lineup, power. Guys are super young, good bullpen, good everything, and good starters. Probably the best starter in the game. And that's another team struggling really bad in this kind of shortened season. That's a team that I'm saying that could have made a really big punch with having that talent coming out hot with those young power arms and do something. It's crazy to see the Marlins at the top of that division because, I saw them being, the people everyone beat up on, and these three teams making some noise. And it's kind of crazy to see them all struggling. And even another team who we knew were going to struggle, but like Boston, I mean, they do still have talent. You lose Mookie Betts, and obviously the arms, you can't really help that. Losing this Rodriguez, but everyone there is struggling. All those big league hitters, Benintendi had like 2 hits on the season. JD's struggling. Moreland's hitting all right. You know what I'm saying? Those good hitters, they still have Xander Bogaerts. That's a big league team with big league all-stars that should be at least middle of the pack, and they just look like they just look terrible.
The Angels are another one I forgot to mention that they just I thought they were going to be okay, but Mike Trout just never has any help. Anthony Rendon.
And Rendon is struggling. Rendon is
Yeah.
struggling really
Ohtani
bad.
can't
He had
pitch
2 bombs
anymore.
today. He had 2 bombs today. He's on his way
Today,
back.
okay, we're talking
Yeah.
about up to now. You know, it's been
Ohtani can't
Oh,
pitch anymore.
he's
Joe
he's
Adele
he's
hasn't really lived up to the
Ohtani
hype
can't
yet.
even throw a strike.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not looking good for the Angels. But another team that has had issues from the NL East is the Braves, man. And it starts with, hey, you're out with Albies. Ozzy Albies, he's been out for a little bit. Your pitching staff, especially your starting pitching, has taken a humongous hit. You lost Soroka for a year, hopefully he fully recovers. That's a really good arm right there. Tore his Achilles. Mike Foltz, who they were counting on, they DFA'd him because he was so bad. And just today, they DFA'd another starting pitcher, Sean Newcomb, the lefty. So it's going to be interesting to see, what happens here with that pitching staff. Is Ronald Acuna going to wake up? Some think he's the best player in baseball right now. He's definitely not looking like that.
He's heating up.
I'm looking at you, Sebastian. And he is, but, I mean, let's face it, that start was putrid. And another team that I had high expectations for that really haven't been living up to are the White Sox. I thought the White Sox had, won the offseason. They made a lot of really good signings. And I thought that they were going to be playing better. Right now, that's just simply not the case. Now, Luis Robert looks like a monster. That's a guy that I saw from the minor leagues, the Cuban, that he hits the ball and it sounds different. He plays differently. He's a 5-tool type player. That's a franchise type player right there. And that's along with other top players like Yohan Moncada. You have Jose Abreu, who I don't think Abreu's had the best of starts, but I believe in him. He's a professional hitter. And Eloy Jimenez, who hit his 5th bomb today, and Tim Anderson starting to heat up a little bit as well. I think that pitching staff needs to improve a little bit. Lucas Giolito hasn't been himself, but his last outing did improve when he had to go up against Shane Bieber. And talking about Shane Bieber, my pick for AL Cy Young, looking really good right now.
I had no idea Luis Robert was so big.
He's massive.
Bro, some of those Cuban guys are
It's the
massive.
Cuban national team, dude. Well, the White Sox are
Listen, no,
Cuban national.
like, have you seen Moncada, like, in his uniform? Like,
Dude,
they look like creative players.
Dude,
I
Luis
saw
Robert looks
Moncada-
like prime Vernon Davis playing center field.
I saw Moncada in like regular street clothes when he was 19. I'm telling you, he looked like he was getting ready for a bodybuilding competition. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that man is jacked.
Yeah,
There's a reason why the Red Sox.
I don't know why.
There's a reason the Red Sox threw so much money at him, at such a young age. I mean, the kid is just impressive, and he just had his first. Last year was his first year of showing what he's capable of, and you're going to expect more of that. At least
Let me tell you, I doubted him. I've doubted him, but I've actually, I've watched White Sox games this year. Believe it or not, I don't know why. Every time I decide to watch, it's on White Sox.
Because we talked about him.
Yeah, and it's he's all they're on TV every time I have it to watch, and that guy, his only problem is his plate discipline, and it looks like he's really focused on it. And if he could literally just be disciplined, that guy has potential to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I wanna defend Ronald Acuna.
Yeah.
for a
What was
second.
that?
The
What was
a
that?
wise man once said that slow and steady wins the race, and I have a feeling that's what he's going for. He's
except for
Slow and
Red Trout,
steady.
because
he
had a
slow and
kid and he's now hitting more home runs. He's got dad strength.
He's got
He's
dad
got
strength.
dad strength.
But
do you
let's
see
talk
what Acuna
about
means
Dad
to that
doing
team?
dad things.
let's talk about Mike Trout. Let's talk about the Angels here, because that's my team. That's shocked me. They have so much talent. At some point, we have to stop making excuses for the Angels. Like, at what point is like, look, okay, all right, it's just not working. They have such a deep lineup. I get it. Albert Pujols is old, but he's actually hitting right now. Otani's hitting. They have Justin Upton. They have Anthony Rendon. Their lineup is set. I know they don't have pitching. They have the right coach, but it's for them to be struggling as much as they are, and I get it. They picked it up here the last couple of days, but for them to be struggling to be a 500 team makes no sense to me. None whatsoever. I do think that there's other teams that are struggling. I think they're just trying to figure some things out, like the Dodgers and the Braves and the Phillies for sure. The Phillies are just playing bad baseball. That I don't get what really happened with that, and we lost Sheehan. Gotcha. But yeah, I think that the season is just like shaping up to be like a really wild postseason because like especially like the last 2 weeks of the season are gonna be insane because there's gonna be so many teams that are gonna be involved in that. Real quick, we got enough for about a minute and a half each. Give me the player that surprised you the most so far and the player that has disappointed you the most so far.
The player that has surprised me the most, Charlie Blackmon. The guy started the season 0 for 9, and he's batting 500 right now. He has like 40 something hits. It's like ridiculous. Like he's hitting like 300 no matter like what happens. I feel like, and so that is the guy who surprised me the most. And the guy doing the worst is probably someone doing not the worst, but someone that surprised me was someone who I freaking admire, Nolan Arenado. You know, a super slow start, but it's kind of like under the radar, him and Rendon. But Arenado's kind of under the radar because the Rockies are playing well and all the other guys are doing really well. Their pitching's doing really good and whatnot.
Yeah, so for me, the player, look, Charlie Blackmon's obviously, playing ridiculous baseball right now, but he is a former All-Star. He's an All-Star type player, so it's not too much of a surprise. The biggest surprise is Donovan Solano, former Marlin legend. Donovan Solano is having a season. He is something else right now. He's, besides Blackmon, he's the best right now statistically. He's the best hitter in baseball. I mean, nobody expected that out of him. Honestly, I'm pretty sure some people from the Giants, fan base didn't even know who Solano was before the season even started, and now they're probably buying custom-made jerseys of that guy because of the type of season he's been having. And for disappointing, it has to be Altuve. One reason because I drafted him, I felt like he was going to have a good season because he is a good hitter at the end of the day, and he just hasn't been producing at the plate. And I think a lot of that has to do with mentality. The whole cheating scandal and all that stuff. It's definitely getting to some of these Astros head, and Altuve's really feeling the effects because he was one of the people that a lot of people harped on.
And the reason why I say Arenado is a surprise, not because he's like hitting like 100, is because when we name the top players, as in Trout and all that, like I have Arenado up there, like with Trout. Like in my eyes, I can never say I put him above Trout, but like I kind of do because Arenado plays third base. Trout is the best player. I think he's gonna go down as the best or the second best of all time. But it's because I hold Arenado to such a high standard that it's like when he's hitting like 200 with like 2-3 bombs, it's like, what's going on right now?
I agree with you with Arenado. I had him, I believe he was third on my list of top 10 MLB players right now. I love Arenado. I think he's a complete player, and I think the fact that he gets slandered because he plays in Colorado is bullshit.
So unfair.
Yeah.
He hits power to all fields. He's clutch. He plays arguably the best third base defense. Obviously, there's Chapman and Machado, but I'm saying you could say Arenado's the best, and you can't argue that. And so he's got everything. He's a leader. He's done it every year, RBI. So it's like I have him up there, and it's a premier position.
So as far as my guys, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And the home road splits for Arenado, like it's not that big of a difference. I mean, he's definitely hitting more power. He's definitely hitting with more power in Colorado, but the batting averages are pretty similar. So it's not like he's so like Carlos Gonzalez ripped in Coors, but he didn't do it any other place.
As far as my guys, I'm gonna give credit to two guys, Mike Trout and Aaron Judge, because they're having spectacular years. And it's two guys. I'm not surprised about Judge. It's kind of more of a health issue. And then Mike Trout, I thought was gonna take a dip, and obviously we've seen what he's done in the last week. It's freaking incredible. But my guy is gonna be Nelson Cruz. It doesn't make sense. He's 40 years old, and he's literally the top 5 hitter in the league still. Like, he's just mashing everything, and it's crazy to me. He's going to be one of the key reasons why the Twins again win the Central. And even though I'm not completely sold on the Twins, they'll always have a chance as long as they keep hitting the way that they're hitting. So Nelson Cruz is my surprise, and then my disappointment is part of what Hector said, is the entire Houston Astros lineup. I mean, these guys are just so, they're such good hitters that it doesn't make sense as to why they're struggling, and that's why I said earlier, I think it's all mental, man. Like, Altuve's swing is horrendous. I have never seen him hit that bad, which only makes me suspect even more that, you know, was he really that great of a hitter because he knew what was coming, or is he just, you know, like, I don't know. I'm very disappointed in the Houston Astros lineup. Sheehan, who is the player that has surprised you so far, and who is the player that has disappointed you the most?
Okay, so one guy that I don't think gets enough credit as being one of the best players in the MLB is Eugenio Suarez. That's a guy hit over 50 jacks
Love
last year.
him. Love him.
So underrated. I think it's because he looks a little dumpy, but he doesn't really have the look of a traditional franchise third baseman. But the guy hit over 50 home runs last season, and he plays good defense, and he can't hit the broadside of a barn this season. There's so many guys that I could choose from, but Eugenio Suarez is really struggling, more than Bellinger, more than these other guys, and he's another team that I thought would be much better than they are, is the Reds. And Eugenio Suarez is a big reason behind that. He is the anchor in their lineup. He's the guy that's supposed to drive in runs on a consistent basis for them, hit and drive the ball out of the ballpark, and hasn't been able to do anything related to that. In terms of surprising guys, there's a couple relievers that, you know, were good. You might remember them from 3 or 4 years ago, but have kind of faded away, and now they're just lights out. One of them is Trevor Rosenthal, who you might remember him from the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Lights out closer for the Royals. Another one is Mark Melancon, lights out closer for the Braves. You might remember him from years past. So these are guys that just scrap heap guys. The Marlins are full of them, but it's been a good year for relievers that, you know, you thought were a little bit past their prime, but now are having a little bit of a revival in 2020 for whatever reason, something in the water. And Trevor Rosenthal and Mark Melancon are 2 good examples of that. But Eugenio Suarez, holy shit, dude.
We just need Edwin Diaz to catch that whatever they're on, because that guy forgot how to pitch.
Yeah.
Can I have to jump in here. Oh my God. This is how we're going to end the show right now. Okay. I had this argument with a Cubs fan. If you know me, you know how I feel about Chicago sports fans. And this was an argument that we had. Okay. Who would you guys rather have? Eugenio Suarez or Chris Bryant? As a player, not thinking marketing, anything like that. Who is the better third baseman right now?
Bro, I like Chris Bryant. Now, I'm not gonna sound stupid, but because he plays a lot of positions. But the guy won, bro. The guy had a crazy start to his career, bro. He had a crazy start. I can't knock him after one.
In like 4 years, bro.
He's been hurt.
Oh
But I really like Eugenio Suarez. I don't know. I like. I'll probably give it to Suarez by a hair until he could show me like one more crazy good, like another good year. Then I could give it to him. But Bryant was a dog, bro. A dog always until he got hurt.
You know, it's really close, but also one correction. He hit 49 jacks last year, not
And you
50.
have to respect the game, bro. Like Chris Bryant, what he did, you have to respect that, bro.
Go ahead. We have 2 minutes. I'm not going to start arguing. Go ahead.
Chris Bryant gets hurt. I will say that Eugenio Suarez has proven to be more durable than Chris Bryant is, and a little bit more consistent. Chris Bryant's, after his MVP season, has kind of been all over the place. So in terms of consistency, I might give it to Eugenio Suarez by a nose, but if he doesn't figure out how to hit again, then, you know, this isn't even an argument. I assume he will, but it's really close. So I'll go with Eugenio Suarez by just an itty-bitty bit right now.
Quick, Hector.
Yeah, give me KB. Defensive wise, he does so much for you defensively. That adds
Hey,
value.
great question. It's a great question.
It is very good. It's tight. Also, KB has a higher ceiling. KB
Yeah.
can go absolutely off for 1 year, for a few years. If he catches, if he finally figures it out to put it all together, he's a top 10 player baseball. Eugenio is a really good hitter. I don't know I don't know what he is defensively, but KB's glove, third base, very strong. And the fact that he can go to the outfield and he can play good outfield for you and potentially hit 300 with 40 plus bombs, I would take that every single day. Plus, he's going to be a fan favorite.
But you're making it seem like Chris Bryant's freaking Scott.
Bro, he's I cannot believe you guys are like giving him credit for defense. He's a defensive liability that hits for power and knows how to run bases well. That is what Chris Bryant is.
He's an MVP for the Chicago Cubs, champions, curse.
It was a sob story. It was a sob story. If he played for the Tigers, you would not know who he is. That's all the time that we got. I'm gonna end it right there. Done. See you guys. That's a done. Jeez, man. You know what it is? It's his name. Like, if his name wasn't Eugenio Suarez, but it was like Gene Suarez or something like that, something more appealing, I swear to God, he would get more love than what he does. The fact that he plays for the Reds doesn't help either, but, that's a story for a different day. What bothers me is just how people view Chris Bryant. Like, people really try to convince themselves that Chris Bryant is a top 10 player in the league. Like, he is so bad defensively. Does he play multiple positions? Great. Doesn't mean he's good. It doesn't mean that he's good defensively. It just means that he is able to play other positions so that other guys can make up for his horrible defensive performances. And like I said in the show, like, he is literally he's a defensive liability that hits for power and knows how to run bases extremely well. That's Chris Bryant. You go back to 2016 when he won the MVP. Like, I don't even think he was the best player that year. Like, Daniel Murphy definitely deserved the MVP that year. I don't even think he was the best player on his own team. He had two things going for him: WAR and the fact that his team had the best record in the majors that year. But in that season, Anthony Rizzo, for me, was pound for pound the best player the Cubs had that year. And if anybody should have won the MVP over Chris Bryant, it should have been Anthony Rizzo. But again, story for another day. That's going to be all for this one. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe on all platforms. We are on YouTube. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on iHeartRadio. We are on Spotify. Like, share, subscribe. Let's Talk Thrive Fantasy app. If you have not done so already, go ahead and sign up with the Thrive Fantasy app. If you play fantasy football, you should be doing this. I don't know what else I got to tell you. You got to be doing this. This is the way you make money in fantasy sports. Download the Thrive Fantasy app. Go ahead, use our code when you sign up. TOOL, TOOL, TOOL. That's our code. Go ahead and use it. Once you do it, you create an account with a minimum of $20. $20 you sign up, I'm going to throw $20 on top of that. 20 instant dollars to your account. Not actually giving you $20, I'm just adding $20 into your account. That's a cool hookup right there. Okay, if you start off with a minimum of $20, I'm going to double it. If you throw in $100, I'm going to give you free 20 instant dollars. Free. Just use my code. That is it. And if you want a little bit more out of it, go ahead and send me a screenshot of you using my code TOOL, TOOL, and I will enter you automatically, no catch. I will automatically enter you into a free Tool Bags Up t-shirt giveaway. That's it. All you got to do is send me a screenshot of you using my code, sign up. You're entered for the t-shirt giveaway. Just a little extra incentive to get you guys to sign up. This is literally, if you play fantasy sports, you need to subscribe to the Thrive Fantasy app like yesterday. Okay, so make sure you get on that. That is all from me. Until next time, I'm signing off.